So, first of all, I would like to introduce you, the panelists. It is Kamal Ved, it is Frank Bartels, and it's me, Katarina Adam. We are highly involved, I would like to say, in the blockchain community. We have a lot of experience here, so Kamal can talk about, or would like to cover today, the technical part. Frank would like to cover the business part, and today I would like to cover the educational part of blockchain technology. What we'll not do today, we will not give a kind of a lecture about blockchain. Hopefully you haven't expected a lecture about blockchain. What we would like to do is, first of all, we would like to introduce us quite a bit, what we are, what we do in blockchain technology, and then afterwards we have some question prepared, but we would also like to invite you to ask us questions, because this is not typical for blockchain community to have a center, someone in the center, and the rest is sitting in front of the center somehow, because this is completely against the blockchain approach. So then that we would like to, involve you into our discussion and work with your question. And for this, you're welcome. But first of all, let's start. Kamal, would you please be so kind and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Kamal, and I actually lead business development and application engineering at BigchainDB. So BigchainDB is like a blockchain database, and yeah, I'm a technologist at heart. I've seen various phases of technology actually evolve. Started off in mainframes, then went into more ERP kind of systems, and then I also worked in the whole internet evolution. I also worked at Amazon. So from Amazon, I actually went into startups. I worked in quite a few startups in the US, and then co-founded a company here in Berlin. And then finally, I decided to actually jump into blockchain because I see blockchain as this new sort of phase in the technology, which is, in my opinion, actually even bigger than what we saw with the internet. And it's going to revolutionize the businesses around us. And I'm really happy to be part of this journey in the blockchain space.
Okay, my name is Frank. I'm one of the founders of Licensed Rocks, and we are building a blockchain-based solution for software licensing. Why do we do this? Because it makes totally sense for us. Me and my co-founder, we've been working in that space for more than 15 years. We did consultancy for software management and especially for software licensing at all the big enterprises in Europe. And when it came to licensing and software and what is allowed to do with a software license and what do the companies do, it's always a mess and a big trouble. And when we think about IT and we think about software, and then we think that they are still sending information on paper. We all know this EULAs and product use rights, and I'm quite sure that none of us really reads the end user license agreement when he installs some software. And that's a big problem for the big companies, and that's what we want to solve with our solution, and we're quite sure that it will be a long journey with some heavy rides in between, but that's our vision, what we plan to do.
Yeah, my name is Katarina. I'm a professor at the University of Applied Science called HTW Berlin. There I'm in the Department of Industrial Engineering, and what we do is, or what I do, corporate finance is my main topic, which I'm covering, and on the other side I also have a lot of lectures and case studies. We work on case studies with the students in the technology of blockchain, or in the field of blockchain technology, let's say in that way. For this we created a lot of case studies. For instance, this year we will finally create the app how to make sure that the certificate you receive from your university can't be faked. And the reason is, if you check YouTube, there are more than 200,000 videos available where you can see how to fake your certificate. And I think it's not a very good idea if you will apply somewhere outside and you do not know whether the other guy who also is applying for that job maybe has done some corrections or something, and we want to make sure with that application that this is not longer possible, and at the end of the semester, of this winter semester, we will have the first application running so that we can use this as a prototype, and hopefully we can convince my university to use this in the future. So that's one part. And besides this, I'm also not only working as a professor and trying to convince people to start as an entrepreneur, to do something in the field of creating your own startup. You know, you can't convince people if you do not know what you're talking about, and that's the reason why I'm also a co-founder. So I'm a co-founder of a startup which is covering the topic real estate in the way of trust. And you all are somehow tenants or landlords, and you all might know what kind of process you have to go through when you want to rent a new apartment. And we want, with that startup, we create a so-called reputation engine that we are able to trust each other, to implement the trust in that real estate market. And I think this could be very helpful, that at the end of the day, there is no need for you to pay the deposit, to give all the information about you in the way like you have to submit the whole paperwork you have to submit nowadays. So this is our vision, what we do in the startup. But one main thing I would like to add, and then I'll stop. I would like to emphasize that I really I think it's very important for young people to get the idea how to become an entrepreneur, how to try to do the first startup, to do the first step, and to get that entrepreneurial spirit. And for this, that is the reason why I'm a co-founder. I do not want to talk about this. I just, want to learn. And what I have learned since I have done that startup with 3 other co-founders, this is so great and this is so big. I only can recommend, try this. And even for my colleagues, I always say, let's do this. It is a lot of work, yes, of course, but it's so helpful to get the understanding. And with this, you can do, hopefully, more interesting lectures, which at the end of the day, the outcome, our students, when they get their grade, that they can have a better chance to understand what business really wants from the students when they go into the market. So, before we open the floor for the discussion, I would like to ask my panel participants here, Frank, what convinces you as a user of blockchain technology in your business model?
That's an easy question. Because, as I said before, today software licenses are sold with PDF documents, with links to product use rights documents in it, with a contract, with things that eliminate some parts of the product use rights document, so everything is unclear and no one knows what is allowed to do with the software license. And then we were thinking about this all the time, and I was heading a service department and I had a team with 8 consultants in software asset management. And when I asked them something about our customers, and I asked them, okay, what's the situation at this big customer? Let's just say a name, can be Red Bull, for example. And then they said, yeah, we found out that this is the case, but we, as the experts, we are really not sure what this means, but we decided to do it like this. And there's always the chance for a company to be audited by the software vendor, for example, Microsoft or Oracle or SAP, go to the companies and they say, okay, let's have a look at your license situation. We know what you bought. Let's show us what you have installed and how you use it. And then they find out, they 99.9% find out that something is not correct. And then you as a company have to pay a lot of money. Just to give you an example, there was one company and one situation this year in Europe, which was audited by SAP. That was one of the biggest breweries in Europe, and they had to pay 55 million British pounds just because of wrong licensing. And if we think that this is the case just because everything is in a document and no one understands the details in the document, that was our main idea, to bring it to a file that is machine readable, that is trusted, that shows the ownership, that can be transferred from one to the other. And that's the main reason why we came up to blockchain, because this is the technology to do so.
Thank you so much. This is a business use case. Who knows more about blockchain, or who could explain, who of you could explain blockchain in one word? One, two, let's, sorry, not one word. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. I would like to use Kamal to just give the audience quite an overview about what is blockchain, what is the technique behind the blockchain, that we get all on board. And maybe you can then explain how companies, or how can we bring companies to the point that they can trust that technology. So that will be helpful, I guess.
Yeah, so the way I usually think about blockchain is, I sort of say that the question I ask is, are you on a blockchain diet? And the diet here is sort of the 4 pillars of blockchain. So we look at decentralized control. We look at immutability. So this is where the data is immutable. And then we look at exchange of assets. So from a blockchain standpoint, everything is an asset, and it's more like an asset exchange. And the last sort of new and exciting piece here is what we call tokenizing. So we sort of tokenize the value exchange on the blockchain. And this piece is critical because this is actually transforming how businesses will actually work in the future. And we truly believe that tokenizing is going to be the next big wave in business transformation. In terms of how companies engage with us, it's a lot of education. So what we typically try to do is we follow this 3-step process. So we follow this crawl, walk, run phase. In the crawl phase, we are typically just educating the customer on what blockchain is, what the BigchainDB technology is doing in the blockchain space. Typically, especially with large organizations, they have heard about blockchain and they want to get on the blockchain bandwagon. So they approach us saying, hey, you know, we want to do a project with you guys, and they have absolutely no understanding of what the use case would be. So ideally, in the crawl phase, we try to figure out with the customer what the use case is. The second phase, in the walk phase, we typically do a POC. And in this POC, basically what we do is we actually take a use case and create a working prototype with the customer. So we will typically involve also their technology people, we will involve their business people, and actually transform some process within the organization in the walk phase. And the final phase is the run phase, where we actually try to get this into the next pilot stage, where they can actually test this in a small production setting, or they add more building blocks to the POC. And this is what the observation has been so far. And in terms of the use cases, so blockchain also requires companies to think slightly differently. A lot of times, actually, the value comes from adopting this co-optation kind of model. So you're not really, you have to work together with their competitor to actually create a very tangible blockchain use case. And in order to do that, we basically have to sort of educate them in the benefits of doing this. And so the discussion and the selling is really hard, because this is where the real value comes from. And the initial discussions or the sales cycle will involve like creating some sort of consortium with different customers, and somebody actually becoming the lead in creating the consortium. And I can definitely go on with the use cases that we are working on, maybe later on as Q&A, but I'll pass it on to Katarina now.
Sorry, I would like to answer, because what you explained about the Bitcoin technology and the Bitcoin behind. So I think, but it will not answer your question or your concerns, your worry about how to bring this out of the technology space to people who have no technology background, and they should adapt the technology and they should embrace the technology. And this is the very big problem we'll face. So people who are in that technology, they are convinced, they say that's it, that's okay. But people who have no idea about, they just know how to use the mobile phone and that's it. And they are really sometimes very upset when they have to download an app and it's not working, so they are completely overwhelmed with the information they received just to download an app. And then to make them aware what kind of big technology is the blockchain is very, very difficult, and therefore I would like to say, from my perspective, it is much too early to say that we can really remove the intermediaries, that we can get rid of all the institution. For instance, with Bitcoin technology, that was one of the aim, to get rid of the institution, like banking systems. We do not need this any longer. I'm pretty sure that we right now need somehow some institution, but we have to force them their obligation. What is the need? What should they do? And how should they behave in the way we would like to rearrange our world in the digitalized version we'll have? This is just my simple person. Forget it. Okay, so it was you.
One question regarding the title of this session. It's called Blockchain Changes Everything. And so when I imagine that spreaded database all over the world, it contains like public transaction. That means everybody can see the transactions, everybody in the world. So from my perspective, that limits like the number of use cases I can just support with its technology, because it's just so public. I don't want to have all of my transaction being public. So what do you think about that?
That's your question.
Yeah, so there are two ways to look at this. If you want a public network, there are technologies out there which are doing encryption, so they basically hide everything. So there is a cryptocurrency called Zcash, which hides pretty much everything, so you can be completely anonymous on a public network. And there is also Monero, which is actually doing something similar. So there is already work out there that is being done. These are using even super crypto technologies behind the scenes. So this is why, from a performance standpoint, they are a bit slower, but they will, in future, they will definitely improve. I would also add that there is a public blockchain, but you should also think about enterprises looking at it more from a private permissioned blockchain level. So they are essentially coming together. If you think about a supply chain can have anywhere from 6 to 14 players involved, and today they are all dealing with different data silos. If this comes to blockchain, this completely transforms the business model, because you have a common knowledge of information across all the players, and they can more efficiently do business. And this is a private blockchain. So this is where only people from these corporations can actually participate in the network. So you control what information gets seen by whom. And this is definitely a possibility.
There are a lot of use cases out there that are based on trust or mistrust. Just to give you an example, I tried to sell my car, and I had a meeting with a potential buyer yesterday, and he wants to have the car on Monday, and I have no idea how to do it, because he has to pay the money first, and then I have to sign all the paper that he's the owner of the car. That's a normal thing. Everyone has done it in his life, I think, once. And that's a trust thing, and there are tons of these use cases, but maybe you have more.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is how do we behave nowadays in the world? So a lot of things are based on trust. And how do we trust people? We trust while we know each other, and we get acquaintance, and we then build it up, and afterwards, after a while, we say, okay, you can trust that guy, he will react in the way I expect that he will do so. But what if, and that's the big question, it could be a good idea, a good solution to think about the implementation of the blockchain technology, whether you do not need to trust someone because it is given. You can really track whether he or she is behaving correctly. So this could be, from my perspective, a very interesting approach. And again, analyze where to implement. It's not necessary to do this in every part of every step of a process. You have to find out where the trust is really the big element, and then analyze this. So I think that could be helpful for creating business solution or business ideas based on blockchain solution.
Just in addition, one of my favorite use cases is from Energy, I think. It's from E.ON. Is it part of E.ON? Yeah. And they had a proof of concept with a car who has its own identity. So it's trusted that this car is this car. And they had an electricity, what's the name for Steckdose? Yeah, they had an electricity plug at a house. And just imagine when you have an electricity car, you can drive to Munich, and then you see that you have to that you need more power in your car, and you can stop at every house, just plug in your car, and when you plug it out, you can your car is fueled again, and then the owner of this house sees in the morning, oh, there was someone at my electricity plug, and I earned €2.50. That's not really a trust. It is trust because you have to trust the car, you have to trust the data, and you have to trust the price at the end. But that's a different use case.
The big thing is really it depends on when you talk to people who are familiar with IT and all the things. They will tell you that we need to put much more pressure, especially into the German community, to come up with blockchain solutions, because if we are not adapting that, we will fall behind quick and fast. Around the globe, the community is working with a very, very high speed on solution, and you know, if we do not embrace that technology, for instance, here in Germany, we will fall behind. If you go to government, and I have done this, I have created an app and I think a very nice solution, and I went to the Federal Ministry of Justice and I explained what I was thinking about, how to, let me say, improve the process of transferring property in real estate. You know what happened? He looked at me and he said, "How can you dare? How can you dare to come up with such a revolutionary idea? We will lose employees. We get rid of people. So no, I do not dare to even think about such a solution, because the consequences I see, they scare me too much." And that's the problem I think we'll have in Germany. We'll have a big problem on this side in Germany. We are risk averse. We do not like to take risk, and we would like to have for all and everything the perfect solution. And you can't get the perfect solution with the first step. You need to work on it, and you will see some failures and so on. So the typical thing we right now have in the digitalization process for which every business is facing. And again, I only, from my perspective, as a professor, but also as a startup co-founder, I would really emphasize that we need to put much more traction, much more attention to that market, not only blockchain, to the whole digitalization process, to understand and to see what we can do, how we can use this. There is much more speed necessary, especially here in Germany, from my perspective.
And my experience is that at the moment, that's what Kamal said at the beginning, a lot of companies have the feeling that they have to do something with blockchain, and then they come to the companies and say, we want to do something with blockchain, what can we do? And that's not really the best thing to start, because you have a problem or you have a use case, and you know that it can be solved with a solution or technology. But we see that we are not in this situation often. It depends on the company, of course, and a lot of big German companies have their innovation hubs, and they know much more better about blockchain, but it will take some time. And when we're at the point that also the startups have their solutions ready, then no one is talking about the technology anymore. And that's the point where that's the hockey stick part, when we don't have to discuss about technology.
Do you think that cryptocurrencies can replace our current currencies, the fiat money, and with what probability will it happen? Or when?
To replace our fiat currency, I think it will take a long, long time if we do so. And I'm not pretty sure we will really replace this, because it's a question of authorities and who is giving up what kind of rights and so on. So I think that this will not happen very soon, very fast. We see that there is, you're talking about digital currencies, and I think you also have seen the increase of the Bitcoin price, and it's very interesting to see what happened, because Japan first, at the beginning of April, Japan announced that they accept the digital currency, and especially in Germany, for instance, digital currencies like Bitcoin are not allowed. This is not a currency, it's still an asset. So a lot of people go and invest into cryptocurrency because they think it's worth to do so. They expect that the price will increase more and more and more. But if it's really worth to use this as a key currency, for instance, in the same role like dollars, euro, yen, or something like this, I think that we will have to take a long, long time. We have to undertake a lot of steps to come to that position. Right now, from my perspective, no, it's not visible. A lot of, I would also, the Bank of England is working on that issue. So that's not, and they still do this, I think, since 4 or 5 years, that they thinking about how can we use this, is it worth to implement. You are facing one big problem. You are facing the big problem that you have to put the non-technologist into account. They have to understand what they are doing. And this is not that easy. For instance, in China, you can do this easier, and it's much easier for the central government to say, now we use this, from tomorrow on you do this. Or see India last year, they removed some banknotes to say from one day to the other. But I think this is really incredible to do something in the Western countries to say from now and then you can't use any longer your fiat currency, and this is the problem, because we are used to use our fiat currency. We have that in that mind setting that we need our money, and I think it will be very, very difficult to make the change that we only have, for instance, digital currency or use this as a key currency if there is no understanding. And again, we are just as early adapters somehow. This is a very, very, the technology is on early stage, and we have to give this a bit time to let it grow, I would like to say.
And the main question is there a need to do so? So there are a lot of things around. I think there's no need at the moment to eliminate all the money we have, because it's the same, but we can touch it. What I expect in the nearest future is that machines will communicate based on digital currencies. This is what I expect, because this makes total sense. For example, you produce something in China and it has to be added there has to be some addition of the car in whatever, Romania or maybe Germany, and then these machines will communicate and they will exchange a digital currency. This is what I see very fast, but not the real money, not everywhere.
Yeah, and just one last bit. I think there are already some experiments out there. I think Liverpool County is actually doing their own local currency, which is a 1-to-1 with pound. So you can actually use go to a local store and actually transact in this local currency. And only when you actually want to take the money out, this is when the transaction happens where the virtual currency gets converted to the local pound. So there are experiments on the small scale. I think the bigger hurdle is that technology has to be battle tested to have a big country actually take this as a virtual cryptocurrency.
I checked the time. One more question, sorry for this.
Hi, as I'm working in one of these areas, finance, in the finance area, and I'm here today because I'm aware of this area, of this problem, is how will evolve future workplaces or work areas, as when any contract is not anymore needed to be checked by anyone personally. So how can workplaces, work areas change? Because I think it has a very radical effect. And do you have any idea whether it creates as well new jobs, despite entrepreneurs?
You like to answer or shall I do? I'm pretty sure that will create a lot of jobs because you need people who are able to understand the new technology, who are able to understand the whole new thing, what's going on. So you're right, from my perspective, that we will remove a lot of working forces in the way what they do right now, today. This is the big challenge for all of us because also for government. Government will not earn if we have a robot doing the stuff because they do not pay taxes. So for this, what can we do? How can we bring new jobs to the market and jobs which are really interesting? And I think there is something going on because you need people who are able to advise, who are bringing the new technology forward. And there is one thing I would like to recommend from this perspective. You might have heard about the what's the name of the model? It's Dave Snowden. He created a model about that. You know, nowadays we are living more or less in a complicated world, but we shift towards the complex world. And to tackle that complex world, we need people who are able to do so, to deal with that problem. And therefore, we need good educated people. That's the reason why university should also concentrate and focus on this, how we are able to make young people ready for the new labor market, because it will be changed there.
Yes, hi. In addition to that question, do you know of any government which is planning or thinking about initiatives to let the people live with a lower amount of jobs, with a lower number? Yeah, is there any government which already thinks about it? Do you know that? Or? Because I'm not aware of not working so much, but I need money. Yeah?
Exactly. This was your problem. You came with the solution, asking for efficient solution, removing job, and you ask for new jobs. And we have to think today how to create freedom to the people, how to liberate ourselves from this work and create value for ourselves. Creating a new job will not be the solution. Removing jobs and creating a stability in the system and giving people more freedom. And this is what we need. So, because we will not be able to create jobs